How you doing, folks? Welcome back. We are now on episode 13 of Run It By My Lawyer. This must be the best kept secret on the internet, my podcast, because nobody's watching it. If you're watching right now, you're one of the very few that's in on the secret of this awesome podcast, Run It By My Lawyer. Let's talk about what's a big deal in the news. Now it's optional if you want to wear a mask if you go on an airplane or a train, which is kind of cool. I like the option. Although when I'm on an airplane, people just want me to wear a mask no matter what because they're afraid I'm going to talk too much, right? So even before COVID, the airline made me wear a mask, right? One very funny lawsuit was brought to my attention by one of the audience members. This employee in the state of Kentucky, when he was hired on to this company, he told them in very, very clear terms and in writing, I have an anxiety problem, and one of the things that causes me the most amount of anxiety is if there's a birthday party for me. So I know that you routinely kind of do a little birthday cake or whatnot for your employees, and for me, please do not do anything for my birthday because it produces a lot of anxiety for me. And so the company being what the company is, they went ahead and threw him a birthday party. They said, we forgot that he doesn't like birthday parties, okay? But apparently they didn't forget his birthday. So they throw him a birthday party. So this poor guy has so much anxiety that he leaves the birthday party and just starts eating in his car and kind of like hiding in his car, all right? And what the company did next was phenomenal. They fired him. They said it was so rude that you didn't come to our party that you're fired. I think I had friends like this. Like when someone doesn't go to their party, they get so upset, right? Anyway, so he got fired. Then he sued them for disability discrimination, because of his anxiety and whatnot. Okay, let's see how it goes. He won in a trial. $450,000. That will probably help out his stress level because I know $450,000 will help out my stress level, right? What else is, Run It By My Lawyer. I did have someone run something by me. This guy owned like a house in the Sacramento area. And he fell on some hard times, financially about 4 years ago. And then he couldn't pay the mortgage and he got behind on his mortgage. And before the house went into foreclosure, this other lender is like a kind of private entity or private company lender type of thing. They lent him the money, at very, very high interest rate. And then he put the house for sale. And within a few months, the house sold. Okay. And the loan was for like $222,000. He was paying off that loan, but he got behind on that loan too. And then this is where it gets crazy. They charged him at a $222,000 when he sold the house. They nickel and dimed him for fees above what he owed them to the tune of $24,000. So there's $24,000 in fees. They called it late fees. Default fees, one fee for NSF fee, which is non-sufficient funds. All right. And then they had like some other late fee. It was all of the same thing and it added up to $24,000. So I looked it over. I sent them a letter saying, all right, let's rewind this a little bit and give them back some of this $24,000. Okay, I made it more professional than that. They sent me a letter saying, no, thanks. Right. So now where we are in the process is I drafted a class action lawsuit. I'm going to send it to them. I'm going to say either you give back this guy the money or we're going to file this class action lawsuit to get everyone's money back. Would you freaking BS them like this? So maybe the law works kind of slow. So maybe by the next couple of episodes, I will have an answer for you. It might take a little while because like I said, the law moves a little slow. People move slow. And when you try to get money from someone, it usually takes a while, no matter how rich they are. All right. Now for today's topic, we will be discussing, speaking of trying to get money from someone, here we go, a $1.3 billion lawsuit. That is billion with a B. All right, $1.3 billion is what this company named Dominion Votings is suing. And they have a lot of other names too. The Dominion, we'll call them, Dominion Voting. They are suing, among other people, Rudy Giuliani for $1.3 billion, which is a lot of money. And they're suing him because they're alleging he made all of these false accusations about the voting systems and that voting, a big election in the year 2020, right, when Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, right after the election, there was a big call for, was there voter fraud, was there not? And Rudy Giuliani came to the picture, and he made a lot of factual allegations about this company. And now the company is suing him, like I said, for $1.3 billion, okay? Here's a soundbite of one of the allegations he made.
One of the experts that has examined these crooked Dominion machines has absolutely what he believes is conclusive proof that in the last 10%, 15% of the vote counted, the votes were deliberately changed. He can take you through that and show you how they programmed that machine from the outside to accomplish that. And they've been doing it for years to favor the Democrats. It is a matter of scientific proof.
All right, so now, I was very shocked about what happened with Rudy Giuliani, because I'll tell you one thing, is he does have an extremely impressive background. And ordinarily, the lawyers know, be careful what you say if you assert some sort of factual allegation. So very briefly, a few things you did not know about Rudy Giuliani. He was born in New York. Obviously, that part you knew. He's Italian American, and he grew up in like an Italian American kind of neighborhood called Flatbush. He graduated. He went to law school, so he's a fellow law school graduate like myself. Right? He went to New York University, NYU Law School. He graduated in 1968, and he was a Democrat when he first started out, and he even volunteered. My wife loves the Kennedys, and Rudy Giuliani volunteered and worked for the Robert F. Kennedy presidential campaign. Okay, so people should know right out of the gate, this guy is bad luck, right? No, so he volunteered for the RFK presidential election, and then after that, he worked for various law firms. He did a good job. He was a good lawyer when he started out. And he climbed in the ranks. He switched from being a Democrat to an independent, then to a Republican. And then he got a really good job in 1981 as the Associate Attorney General for Ronald Reagan. And that's where his career took off. Okay. He did a lot of things that he was involved with that was very, it was popular and not popular. One of those things that, you love it or you hate it type of thing. In 1982, there was this thing that happened in America. There was about 2,000 Haitian immigrants that were trying to come to the United States. They came to the United States, and then basically the federal government put them in prison, for a while. And he was defending that, saying they weren't true refugees, they weren't true asylum seekers, this and that. Obviously a very controversial thing, but he was the attorney general for the president, right? Or the assistant attorney general. So he had to, he defended very well the federal policies. He also, what's it called? He then started, he became then the United States attorney in New York. Okay. So he worked for the federal government, and he was the prosecutor in the New York area. Okay. For like prosecuting federal crimes. And this is where his career even took off even more. And he was a great prosecutor in terms of, prosecutors. He was one of the best. And as the U.S. attorney, he went after the big shots. He went after billionaires. He went after the mafia. This guy, the Michael Milliken, is that how you pronounce his name? And Ivan Boesky. There were these billionaire or million or billionaire. I don't know exactly how much money they had. Okay, but they had a lot more than I do. Okay, and Rudy Giuliani went after them for insider trading, securities and fraud. Things like that. And he made a very, very big name for himself. And like I said, he went after the mafia, the five families, all of it. And then he ultimately, as most of you know, he did become the mayor of New York City. and that was in the 90s. He became mayor of New York City, I believe, in 1993, give or take. Okay, so he became the mayor of New York City in the mid 90s, and he was the mayor in New York during the World Trade Center attacks. It was Rudy Giuliani was the mayor, and he did a good job. I mean, he held, the city came together. Like he was a good guy. He went to a lot of communities. He met with the people. He met with the families. I mean, I remember, very well. I mean, he was a very good mayor, and people just loved him. Everyone. Well, at least that's what it looked like, right? And I was just talking to someone about this. Whenever I meet like a younger person, like if they're in their 20s or late 20s or early 30s, one of the things I ask them, I go, "Do you remember 9/11 when it happened live?" And that's like a milestone. If some kids, some of them are like, "I don't know, I was too young to remember," and I'm just like, "Oh my god!" And then they look at me, they're like, "But you saw it live," like we're now getting in that age where we're getting older, so people look at us and say, "Oh, you saw history unfold." All right. Anyway, I digress and I apologize. Okay. So he did very well. And then the only reason he stopped being mayor is because the New York City has a term limits rule about how many terms you could become mayor, and he couldn't run for a third term or something. It was something like that. It was term limits. So he stopped being mayor of New York. In 2008, yes, he did run for president of the United States, and it kind of stopped like early on in the tracks. I didn't even he had like a few states in the primary race, and then it was pretty clear that he didn't have it, like the steam or the popularity to become the president. So he ended the run for president in 2008, and that's where things then started going downhill for Rudy Giuliani. It went so bad, and then he kind of rubbed shoulders, or was it rub elbows or rub shoulders? One of those, right? He did a lot of rubbing, okay, with the New York elite. And ultimately, in 2021, last year, his license to practice law was revoked. It was terminated by the state of New York. That's like the ultimate worst thing, is when your bar license gets revoked. It's like, even if you're not practicing law anymore, it's just such a slap in the face, like worse than a Will Smith slap in the face when your bar license gets revoked. And that's what happened to our friend Rudy Giuliani. I think for him, there was a proud moment though. There was another lawyer back in the day named Roy Cohn. And Roy Cohn was, he was even Donald Trump's attorney when Donald Trump was coming out, and other like big shot New York elite. And then Roy Cohn did a lot of shady things as a lawyer, and he made a lot of moves as a lawyer. And he was ultimately disbarred by the state of New York. And in some ways, Rudy Giuliani's career kind of went the same path. So I don't know. In a way, I think it was something he was excited about. Now comes the 2020 elections, right? And most of so Rudy Giuliani is rubbing shoulders with Donald Trump, and he's doing everything with Donald Trump. He's dressing like a woman and doing Saturday Night Live. He's doing everything, right? So he's a big shot now, and he was helping Donald Trump, and he was Donald Trump's personal attorney even. And then where it got dicey was after the 2020 election, right? So Donald Trump loses the election, or some people say, it was rigged. Okay, this is why we are in this $1.3 billion lawsuit. Is this? So the election happens. Donald Trump loses. A lot of people then alleged that there was voting fraud, right? Votes were changed, dead people were voting, right? People voted multiple times, non-citizens were voting, all of the above, right? And then Rudy Giuliani took it to another level, okay? Like if you said, I think there was voting fraud, okay, that's one thing. But what he did was something much different. He made very definitive factual allegations. Okay. For example, this company, Dominion Voting, he said that they were connected with Venezuela, which is a difficult thing because the Venezuelan leadership, Hugo Chavez, like this guy is hated by the Americans and considered, a dictator and a ruthless dictator and a corrupt dictator. So what Rudy Giuliani said is, well, the Dominion voting system that tabulated the votes for millions and tens of millions of people is connected with this Venezuelan government. And then he went so far as to say that, that the Dominion was owned by a company called Smartmatic, which is a Venezuelan company. And he said in definitive terms, things like, and him and the other co-defendants, Sidney Powell and Lytle or Little, the MyPillow guy. All right. So, these are things that are said by one, two, or three of these people. Okay. That the Dominion voting was connected with the Venezuelan government. And again, I got to read this over and over to make sure I say this correctly, that originally the Dominion voting system was created for Venezuela so that votes would be changed for Hugo Chavez. And then when they realized how to change votes, then they brought it to the United States of America so that it could change votes in the United States of America. Okay. It was the same system that was used, by the way, in the 2016 election. These machines were used, but in 2020, the Dominican voting was much more advanced or popular, or they were used more often, things like that. It was a growing company, so to speak. All right. So in defamation law, you have to, if you say something like, I think, Joe Samo is crazy. Okay, that you will not get sued for defamation, other than the fact that I wouldn't sue you, right? Or I should say, you wouldn't lose a case for defamation. I guess anyone could get sued for anything, but you wouldn't lose if it's like an opinion or if it's just kind of like a statement that isn't like a factual, assertion type of thing. Okay, but when Rudy Giuliani made a specific statement, or one of the co-defendants, they're making a specific statement saying, this company is owned by a Venezuelan company. This company was using votes, was doing the voting system in Venezuela. All right, something the company says never happened, and that they were changing votes for Hugo Chavez. Okay, those are factual allegations. All right, and another factual allegations that, like I said, one, two, or all three of the co-defendants said was that the founder of the Dominican voting system said to them, I could change 1 million votes like in a second. I could just go in there and change 1 million votes. And then that one is also something that the company is denying. And then the other big one, and this is huge, the co-defendants, the allegation is that the co-defendants were saying things like this, that the system, let's say there was votes for Donald Trump, for every 100 votes for Donald Trump, the system weighted the votes differently. So all the votes for Donald Trump, they multiplied it by 0.77, which means they reduced the amount of votes. So if there was 100 votes for every 100 votes for Donald Trump, they would reduce them to 77 votes. And to make the difference, they would take Joe Biden's votes and they would increase it to 1.22 or 1.23, that was something in that range, right? And that so that if there was 100 votes for Trump, it would be reduced to 77 votes. And if there was, 100 votes for Biden, that would be increased to 123 votes. Okay, so that way the vote tally number is the same, the overall vote tally, but obviously the more votes would be given to Biden, like illegally, they would be transferred. So that was obviously a very, very important factual assertion. And it's okay. Now I have to do something a little crazy, and I got to explain this voting machine system. All right. The voting machine that Dominion makes and how they make a lot of money is the following. When you go to vote, you fill out the ballot, right? And then ultimately the ballots are put into machines, and then the machines run it and calculate the number of votes, for everybody, right? So Dominican makes these, sorry, did I say Dominican? It's Dominion If I said Dominican once or twice before, it's Dominion, not Dominican. Dominion makes these machines that will take in the votes, like, and tabulate them. I remember when I was a kid, you remember, some of you remember those old Scantron forms, right? And you'd have to use a number 2 pencil and do those Scantron forms. And then I do remember as a kid, there was a machine that you put it in and it does this and it tabulates the Scantrons. Anyway, so that's it. That's what the Dominion company does. It makes those machines, it tabulates the ballots, and then it has like software that then produces the numbers and whatnot, right? And it makes a lot of money doing that, okay? So to make the factual allegation of this very specific, it changes the votes from 100 votes to 77. You know, it weights them at 0.77, and votes for Biden, it weights them for 1.22. That is, in law, that is a very big fact. Like, you should know, like any lawyer should know, if you make that factual allegation, you better have the right evidence, because that is a flippin' big deal. All right. And so they were making these factual allegations, and that Dominion is saying that those were all untrue. All right. All of it was false, leading to this lawsuit. Now, what I don't understand is that there was enough things that they could have said about Dominion that was true, that could have, turned a lot of heads. For example, this is something I didn't know at the time. Dominion, this company, is contracted by the federal government and a lot of state governments to tabulate and record, and do our ballot counting. All right. It is not a United States company. It is a Canadian company. And so what the heck? How in the galaxy do we have a foreign company kind of controlling all of this? Okay, I don't know. They could have just focused on that. That's a big deal, I think, right? And now it's like that company, it was founded in Toronto, Canada, in 2002, and it's a Canadian company, darn it. So they do the same in Canada, United States, and somehow they have a big contract with Serbia, the country in Europe. Now, that's a big deal, right? And the way it works is that a lot of state governments and the federal government, I don't know why, they don't have their own software that does this. So it's cheaper, it's more efficient to go to private companies to do the calculating, and not the federal government or state government. So it's kind of an interesting system, right? Because it's clearly the most important thing in the world, and then you have these private companies that are doing the tabulating, and then with Dominion, it's a foreign corporation that is doing the tabulating. So I don't know how our own federal government cannot create the software to do this themselves, right? Instead, they have to go to private companies and then foreign private companies to do this. Now, the other business here is, why are they suing for $1.3 billion? How did they come up with that? So I looked into kind of the financials of Dominion Voting. This is a ginormously profitable company. I have an idea for software developers out there. Okay, learn how to count, right? Or learn how to make machines and software that counts. All right, because they, from the United States government and state governments, in 3 years, from 2017 to 2020, they made $120 million. And that's just in those few years, right? They made $120 million, and the profits were going up and up. And they made, sales like this in Canada. All right. And like I said, in Serbia, and obviously they're going like international, right? It's a growing company. So the claim is that when these guys started talking smack about Dominion, that it hurt them. Now, you're allowed to talk smack as long as it's either just an opinion, like I don't like it. I don't like that it's a foreign entity that's controlling this and stuff like that. That kind of smack is allowed. Other smack that's always allowed is if it's accurate information, okay? They call it in the defamation world, truth is a defense, okay? So truth would be a defense. So if any of these things are later proven to be true, then Giuliani and the other guys would be, or Sidney Powell is not a guy. Giuliani and the co-defendants will be off the hook if these things are true. Okay. So then you could talk smack, like I said, if it's true or if it's just an opinion. So now I want to explain kind of the law on this kind of defamation. When you're discussing like important political things, or if you're a journalist, or if you're covering, a public figure, the defamation and slander bar, you could say, is way higher. Because we don't want to discourage journalists and we don't want to discourage people from talking about public figures. So we kind of the law gives people kind of a lot of flexibility. And that flexibility kind of goes like this. If you are talking about a public figure, an important political event, obviously the elections, federal elections being a very important political event, the standard is higher. So Dominion has to prove that these folks kind of had, either just like pure malice or just a pure disregard for like a reckless disregard for the truth. Meaning like if they had like credible reports or reports that they reasonably thought were credible, then they could probably win, because it's like, oh, we were given these reports from these credible sources, something like that. So that's what they're going to have to prove later, that either they got that this is true, which I think it might be hard to prove because I just don't think it was true, but they could prove it. I don't know. Maybe they were changing the votes. I don't know. By the way, I don't want to get sued by this freaking company. So I'm just saying, I don't know what happened, okay? Don't nobody sue me. Anyway, so they have to prove that either this is true or that they had some sort of credible resources or like kind of credible information that they based it on, so that they weren't acting with any sort of malice or reckless disregard for the truth, that they were acting reasonably, and it just turned out in retrospect not to be completely accurate information. All right. And we will see. Now I want to discuss the procedure of the lawsuit. Okay. Anyway, so there are all these lawsuits going on against these defendants and Fox. Now comes the procedural trial. What would happen was this: Dominion filed these big lawsuits against these entities in federal court, and then the defendants, the Giuliani and them defendants, right? They filed what's called a demur. Okay, it's a procedural thing in federal court. It's called a Rule 12b-6 motion. Okay, law students, if you heard that, but the Rule 12b-6 motion. Okay, also called the demur. And what they tried to do, these good folks, the defendants, is they said to the judge, the federal court judge in Washington D.C., they said, Your Honor, we want to file this motion to dismiss, you can call it, this demur, which is basically, oh, by the way, the word demur, it's a French word apparently. It's one of the few legal words that our court system took from the French legal system. Demur, okay? I don't know, I'm not French, I don't speak French, but one person, when I had a law student that spoke French, and he said, it's actually demur, or something like that, right? So it's one of the few words. Most of our words are taken from the Brits or like old Latin, but this was one of the few French words we took, which is probably why then the federal government changed it from calling it a demur to a Rule 12b-6 motion. I think they wanted to get the French out of the federal law. All right. So back to what I was saying. So these defendants filed this Rule 12b-6 motion, and in essence says to the judge, before we discuss the factual allegations and whether or not the Dominion's factual allegations is true, that we lied and we're just a bunch of lying sacks of shit, all right? Before we discuss that, we got to dismiss this case because we're politicians and we have a very flexible amount of like leniency in terms of how wrong we could be about something. So even if these factual allegations are true, that we're just a bunch of lying jerk-offs, let's get this case dismissed, please. The federal judge ruled against Giuliani and the defendants, saying that if these factual allegations are true by Dominion, which is that all of these things were just blatant lies, then you need to go before a jury, and a jury could rule that you defamed and slandered Dominion and that you owe them a lot of money because Dominion lost a lot of contracts over this, you know? And then they got this jerk, Joe Samo, being me, talking about them now, right? No, but they lost a lot of money. And it's kind of like, if you think of a little graph, like they're making more and more money, and then in comes Giuliani and Fox and the My Pillow guy, and they're talking all this smack about them. And instead of the profits going this way, then it's going to go that way, right? So that's how they came up with this $1.3 billion. And to the chagrin of the defendants, the federal judge said, no, this is going to proceed to trial. I am not going to dismiss this case. So it's going to get very, very interesting. One person I was talking to about this, he's like, wait, didn't this all happen like years ago? I said, yeah, 2020. Us lawyers, we're going to be talking about this for a long time. When I say it's going to proceed to trial, I don't mean something like next week. It's going to have like 2 years probably of what they call discovery. Like they're going to depose Rudy Giuliani. They're going to do a deposition of the My Pillow guy. They're going to depose people at Fox News. They're going to depose the so-called experts that said that the software was changing the votes, right? They're going to depose the alleged sources that Giuliani had or whatever, right? So all of that takes a long time. So it's going to be a long time before it goes to trial. My gut feeling is that somebody's going to pay off Dominion, all right, and get this thing settled because that will not be a good trial for them. And I have a feeling it'll settle, which is a bummer because I love seeing things go to trial, but it is very rare. All right. Well, hey, I am dying to know what you folks think. All right. So let me know what you think. And as always, if you have any questions, I'm here for you. You could run it by my lawyer. Okay. You can call me. There's a number, 619-672-1741. All right, folks, enjoy, and I will see you next week.